What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the market moving forward as we have huge data coming out for tomorrow that's going to affect the Fed's policies, not to mention the markets. I'm going to break down what you should be watching for as time goes on for the charts. But let me just mention that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. Anyways, for NIO, we have this nice inverse head and shoulders like structure starting to develop, and the share price is building some bullish momentum right here. The question is, can this continue going into tomorrow? That's going to depend a lot on CPI and many other factors. But one thing worth mentioning is that we do look more bullish from a technical standpoint for NIO. For the QQQ, we look bullish. For SPY, we look bullish. The market looks very bullish so far. So whether or not the technicals are correct depends on CPI, but just know the charts do suggest upside is very probable for tomorrow. So once again, I will talk more about all of these charts in just a couple of minutes. Let's first talk about this data. Today we had the PPI data report come out. Everything was below expectations. PPI month over month was 0.1% below expectations. Same thing with core month over month at 0%, and everything else was below expectations. The market liked that, which is a good sign for inflation. Tomorrow, before the market opens, and tomorrow is Wednesday, August 14th, 2024, we have the CPI data report coming out. So we're expecting CPI to be below expectations or at what we're looking at. We're expecting the basic core month over month to be around 0.2 to 0.3%. That's actually a little bit higher than what we saw before. And then for year over year, we're expecting core to be around 3.2 to 3.3%, the same thing as before. For CPI month over month, we're expecting it to be for all items at 0.2%, higher than before. And year over year, we're expecting 2.9 to 3%, which is basically the same as what we got before. So we're expecting the data to be very similar to the previous reports, some things to be a little higher. So with these, like, I would say somewhat higher expectations, there's a good chance we're going to be aligned with them, if not below them. So that's going to be a good sign for the markets. I also want to add that the trend on CPI has been down. We're starting to see CPI decreasing, which means that the rate at which prices are going up is what's slowing down. That's what's slowing down. This does not mean that prices are going down. The rate at which they're going up is what's slowing down. That's what this is basically telling us. Now, I also know that CPI is very manipulated, so I'm not saying this data is 100% accurate, but so far the different options we have, the data we have suggests it's not going to be too bad. This is the earnings chart we have right here. Nothing too crazy is coming out right now, so I'm not going to talk too much about this. But I do want to mention that tomorrow we have Dole, Cisco, and a few others, excuse me. And then for Thursday we have Alibaba and Walmart. Anyways, going back to CPI, I just want to mention that right here we have gas prices. If anything, on average, U.S. gas prices were almost the same in July as they were in June. They went up just a slightly about by like 3 cents. It's not really much of a change, so that's a good sign for CPI. And then crude futures also went up just slightly. It wasn't really enough to really hinder or hurt PPI. The data was decent. There's a good chance CPI is going to be decent as well. There's about a 54% chance to get a 25 or a 50 basis point cut from the Fed, and a 46% chance we get a 25 basis point cut. We're kind of like in the middle right now, but the market's leaning a bit more towards that 50 basis point cut, especially if we get a good CPI report. Now, going back to earnings, we just have a lot of retail for the week, nothing too crazy. We had new announced its earnings, and they actually beat headlines, adding 5.2 million new customers in Q2. However, their guidance was not the strongest, which is why the share price hasn't really made much of a move. But not bad whatsoever. I want to just call this out. Pretty good earnings from them. One thing worth noting is that we're seeing a lot of bad news involving Iran and Israel. So I'm hoping that there's no attack or anything like this. If that happens, that could throw a lot of technical analysis away and there could be a big drop in the markets. But as of right now, I don't really see that. So I just want to be very honest about that. On top of this, NIO sales are popping. We're talking about a 44% growth so far. That's also based off what we're seeing in EV growth. I think this is very, very awesome because they're talking about the July numbers. And then the last week for NIO was pretty good as well. We're also looking at about 108,000 vehicles delivered in the first 7 months of the year, which is ahead of its competitors like Xbox. So we're looking at a 44% increase in that and getting lots of recognition for that. Right now, NIO is prioritizing their sales. They're doing this just to help improve their margins and such. They're also doing this because they don't want to focus too much on AI or anything like that. So just wanted to call that out. Also, we have about 29 million in volume. That's below average. And then short volume is also going down a little bit for NIO. We also have Bank of America Securities giving us a neutral rating, not to mention the price price ratio dipping a little bit as well. And besides that, there's not really a whole lot else that's coming out. When it comes to our daily seasonality, do not forget that we also happen to have green about 56% of the time. So looking pretty good so far. What do I think about the share price? I think we have an inverse head and shoulders like structure, and this imbalance is kind of like going to attract us towards $4 most likely. That is the most likely possibility from a technical standpoint. But if we lose 3.83, look for it to dip back down to 3.75. This chart is still favoring that $4 target, so I still think it looks bullish. I favor the upside for NIO, but watch and see just to be safe. But don't forget, we still look more bullish. For other tickers out there, such as SPY, and don't forget, it depends on CPI, of course, but technicals look more bullish than bearish. CPI is most likely going to be decent, so it does favor upside a bit more. But we'll see what CPI brings us just to be safe. You want to be open minded. But like I said before, we still look more bullish. Anyways, going back to SPY, we look more bullish. If we break past 542, we're going up to 544. If that breaks, I think we're easily going all the way up to this resistance at 548. So watch those resistance levels, 542, 544, and 548 as tight levels. There's a good chance we're going to try to continue to push upwards. If we end up breaking down, look at 538 as key support. If that fails, we're dipping to at least 535 or lower. It depends on CPI, but CPI is likely going to be decent, and this chart looks very bullish. So the upside to 544 plus looks more probable in my personal opinion. For ES, we're barely at resistance at 54.56. If we break this, we're going to get closer to 5,500. If you reject here, we'll be dipping back down towards the lower 5,400s. The chart still favors upside in my personal opinion. I think that's a lot more favorable. For Bitcoin, we look a little bit more bullish. We could be looking for our 200 EMA around 61,738. This looks a little bit more bullish to me. If we end up losing 59,760, we could, excuse me, we could dip, but this favors upside as well, in my opinion. So we look more bullish as well. For others out there like Nvda, Nvidia is looking more bullish. As long as we hold above 116, we favor 120 plus. That's where our very important imbalance happens to be, and this could be forming a nice cup. We also have gaps to fill above, but I think that 120 is the more bullish outcome. If we lose 116, look for 113, then 108 as supports. But this chart is favoring upside for 120. We look more bullish. And I just want to call out that it's very important to note this because we favor that at least going into CPI. For Tesla, we look more bullish. We got a nice inverse head and shoulders. We're looking for this test of resistance around 208. Break that, and we're going all the way up towards 212. If that breaks, we're going even higher to 215 plus. So watch those resistance levels. If we lose 205, look for 200 basically to be tested all over again. But I think this chart looks a little bit more bullish to me. So just to be safe, make sure you watch your levels and just know that Tesla is favoring upside. Just wanted to call it out. It depends on CPI, of course, but the charts still look bullish. The QQQ, if we're bearish and we lose 458, look for that dip towards 454. And if we're bullish, you want to see it break past 464. If that breaks, we're going all the way up towards 470. I think we're going to test that tomorrow most likely, but it depends on CPI. Apple looks like it might try to push towards 222 again. If we manage to break that, we're going up to about 225. And if we lose 220, look for a dip towards 216. We look more bullish, so we'll see if that ends up being the case, but I just wanted to call it out that we look pretty good. The IWM is looking more bullish. If we continue to push, we'll be looking for 209. If we lose 206, we'll be dipping. This favors upside, in my personal opinion. For coin, we look more bullish. We could be pushing for 200. If we break this, I'll be looking for 205. And if we lose 195, we'll be dipping. I think we're making higher highs and higher lows, so we favor 205. So I think coin is looking more bullish. For Amazon, we're looking a little bit more bullish as well. Look at 171 as our resistance to fill this gap. If we break that, I think we're heading for 175. If we lose 167, look for a dip, but this is looking more bullish. It does depend on CPI, of course, but just know that the chart still favors upside. Meta is no different. Meta looks like it wants to push for 530 plus. If we break that, look for 535 and higher. If we end up losing 525, we're tipping back down to 520, but we still favor upside. Microsoft looks like it wants to go up to 420 if we hold above 412. But if we lose 412, we'll be dipping back down to 408. We still look more bullish. Google is in the middle, kind of flat right now after we got some negative news. We're stuck. We need to break past 167 to turn back up. Otherwise, we're still kind of consolidating, not looking as great. We'll see what CPI brings us. So honestly, guys, the majority of stocks are bullish. Everything is looking like it wants to push. Even NIO looks like it wants to go up towards $4. Whether or not this happens depends on CPI, so get ready for that for tomorrow. We'll see how things go. It's a big day for the markets and NIO, so get ready for the CPI data. Most likely, the data is going to be aligned with expectations, in my opinion, if not below them. So we'll see how things go. With that being said, thank you for listening. I'll see you guys very soon on the next one tomorrow. Have a great day and peace out.